The synagogue is having a real problem. They have mice everywhere in the synagogue. They can't get rid of the mice. They call an exterminator, they call another exterminator, they call another exterminator, but the mouse problem just won't go away. So they finally decide, okay, well, let's speak to the rabbi. Maybe the rabbi has an idea. So they go to the rabbi. They say, Rabbi, we can't get rid of the mice in the synagogue. And the rabbi says, you know what? I have a solution. What I'll do is I'll gather all the mice together. I'll give them bar mitzvah lessons. And once they're bar mitzvah, you'll never see them again.
Jaime Cohen goes in to see the doctor for his checkup. He's just turned 60. The doctor examines him, comes back and says, you know what, Mr. Cohen, you're in amazing shape. You're in better shape than a 50-year-old. He said, how old was your father when he died? Mr. Cohen says, my father dead. He said, who says he's dead? He's alive. He's doing great. He's 85 years old. He's in perfect health. The doctor says, wow, that's amazing. He said, how old was your grandfather when he died? He said, my grandfather dead. Who said my grandfather's dead? He's 110 years old. He's doing great. In fact, he's getting married next week. The doctor says, getting married at 110? Why is he getting married? He says he's under a lot of pressure from his mother.
So I want to tell you a story today about my elderly Aunt Bessie. She lives in Detroit, 90 years old, sharp as a tack. And you know those people that know the right thing to say at the right time? She's quite incredible. Anyway, one thing about her is she is a terrible driver. She's still driving. Recommended that she doesn't, but she's still driving. Anyway, she's out one day and she's driving and she's speeding. And she gets pulled over by the police. Policeman comes up to her window and says, ma'am, you know you were speeding. And she says, yes, I'm sorry. I know I was speeding. He says, in fact, you're doing 70 in a 30. And she says, I'm so sorry. He says, could I see your license? She says, I don't have one. He says, you don't have a license? She goes, I'm legally blind. He says, you're legally blind? And you're driving? He says, let me see the ownership of the car. She says, it's not my car. She says, it's not your car. Whose car is it? She says, I didn't ask the guy when I stole it. He says, you stole the car? She says, yeah. And I had to kill him and put the body in the trunk. Anyway, the policeman is just absolutely beside himself. He backs away from the car. He phones back up. Another police officer comes a moment later, comes up to the window and he says, ma'am, pop the trunk. She says, okay. She pops the trunk. He goes around the back. He looks in it. The trunk has nothing in it except a spare tire. In fact, it was very neat. Comes around to the window again. He goes, could I see your license? She says, yes, officer. Here's my license. He says, what about the ownership? She says, here's the ownership. He says, you know, there's something that doesn't make sense. He says, I got a frantic call from my partner who told me a terrible story. He says, you don't have a license because you're legally blind. You stole the car. You killed the guy whose car it was, and you put his body in the trunk. She says, officer, and I'm sure he also told you I was speeding.
Sam and Izzy are partners in a very successful schmata business. Sam wants a little more recognition in the community at large. He asks around, and people tell him, you should be buying art. He finds an art advisor who says, I can help you with this. It will take 1 year and cost you $1 million. Okay, he says. A year later, Sam has a party to unveil his painting. Everybody applauds wildly when they see the canvas with one dot. Izzy, not to be outdone, decides he should buy art as well. He goes to the same art advisor who tells him things are a little different today. Now it will be $2 million and 2 years. Okay, Izzy says. 2 years later, Izzy has a party to unveil his acquisition. The crowd wildly applauds when the curtain comes down and shows the painting with 2 dots on it. They ask Sam his opinion, and he says, it's okay. It's a little ungepatchka, though.
So 2 whales are sitting at a bar. One whale says, The other whale turns to him and says, all right, Dave, give me your keys. You're drunk. That's right.
So Sydney is a really good guy, but he figures life would be a lot better if he won a really big lottery. So he figures, I'm going to daven shacharit every morning, and I'm going to pray. And for 6 months he davens, doesn't win. Figures I better add mincha to the program. 6 more months, he's davening shacharit every morning, mincha every afternoon, still doesn't win. Figures gotta add marav. Shacharit, mincha, marav. This guy's running to shul and he's running home. Still nothing. Like Tevye, he goes out in the backyard and looks up and he says, would it be so terrible if once my numbers came up? There's a clap of thunder and a voice from above that says, Sydney, do me a favor, buy a ticket.